Hey everybody, and welcome to the Director's Commentary edition of Defiant, Gate Studios' first short film that we've ever posted. So I was the director, writer, and producer for this short film, and as I'm getting ready to begin production, moving from the pre-production stage to production on our next project, or one of our next projects, I decided to take a look back at Defiant and see what we did and kind of analyze it, what we might do differently, what we might do the same, just kind of take a look at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play through the film and stop at different places and kind of go over what we did and what we might do differently, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Where's our money? Where's our money?
So the first thing I want to mention, I'll just go ahead and do that real quick, is the grading for the project. I never done any color grading or correction on a project before, and for this particular project, I wanted to have that bluish tinge where it kind of gave that Jason Bourne-like feeling and effect to it, and I think I accomplished it pretty well. Everything has kind of that bluish feel to it, and if we go around the corner here, we have Philip coming up on the scene, and everything's kind of got that bluish tinge, a little bit darker, gives a more serious type feel for it. We'll just go back a couple frames here. So one thing that I didn't do very well at all was make sure that the scene was properly set up. As you can see over here, we have a garbage can, I have a laptop sitting here, a couple other random items, a mic stand, and a tripod bag. And what ended up happening actually with this was that we had better audio equipment, but I forgot I think I forgot cables, to be honest. Yeah, I forgot cables for filming this short. And because the weather was kind of dark and gloomy as it was, we kind of had unknown amount of time to film it. So instead of going back and getting audio cables, we kind of ended up just filming the short anyway. So I'm moving on here. Yeah, so throughout the short, you'll notice the audio isn't the greatest quality. So we're coming up to our one scene here that I definitely would have done differently and prepared for better. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and stop there for a second before we get to the next part. If we go back a little bit, just grab my little indicator here. If we go back a little bit, you'll see that this whole scene, well, one, the fighting, like, I would have definitely done better fight planning and preparing, for one thing, because we weren't prepared at all. We kind of winged it. We should have done a day or so of fight choreography, really getting things worked out, and we didn't do that. And so, and just to note here, this knife that Casey has in this scene is a real knife. So we were also being super careful not to actually stab Philip in the scene, because we didn't have prop knives or anything like that. And so if we move a couple frames up here, you'll quickly notice that once we actually start the fight scene, Alex and Jacob disappear. Our other mugger and the victim, they just disappear from the scene altogether. Not something that I really realized till afterwards doing the editing, but we already filmed it. We weren't going to go back and film something this short and simple. So move forward a little bit more, and really cheesy fighting. Again, you can see the extra equipment sitting there in this frame. So then we move on. Alright, next part, Philip beats up Casey, knocks him to the ground. And then this next clip here, look, Alex and Jacob, I don't know, can you see Jacob? No, it looks like you can just see Alex. I can't remember if Jacob was there or not. But here, we'll go ahead and watch this next part of the scene here. And then there's Jacob again. So going back, we'll go back here. First things first, I actually really like how we did some of this. So, Casey gets knocked to the ground. We change to the angle of Alex pulling out the gun, getting ready to shoot Philip. The one thing I would have changed is I wouldn't do the straight angle up to the pistol again, it actually makes it really difficult to do lens flare effects, and it kind of just, it doesn't flow very well as far as when it comes to doing the effects. I would change how I do this by making it more of an angle shot, even just a slight angle, not even like changing it so much from being straight on, but maybe just moving the camera to the left and angling it towards Alex a little bit more. So we do one shot, two shot, and then this scene ended up being a big disappointment for me because I had a really grand vision for it. And, so Alex goes, shoots. Now for that third shot, everything goes slow motion, which was actually really easy to do, and I'll explain why in a moment. But everything goes slow motion, and how I had envisioned it was that you were going to be able to see the bullet coming out the barrel of the handgun, and that the camera would rotate its way around the bullet and follow it into Philip's hand as he caught the bullet, making him seem superhuman. Unfortunately, we did not shoot the scene in which you would have followed the bullet widely enough. We were too close as to where the bullet would be, not giving us enough room to work with actually having a full 360 revolution around the bullet, which means the only way we could have fixed that would be to refilm the scene. And unfortunately, by the time we realized that that was a problem, it actually had snowed. So all of this environment was covered in snow. So in order to refilm that one scene, we actually would have had to refilm the entire short. We had a couple other options that we could have pursued, such as recreating the entire scene 3D in like 3ds Max or any other number of 3D softwares. And we chose not to, one, because it was pretty short film. I mean, it's like a minute and a half long. It was pretty simple. We decided to keep it simple. So instead, we ended up having to go the, I don't want to say cheesy route, but just the lazy route of, oh, it looks like Philip caught it, but you don't actually see anything in his fingertips. And it looks like he's throwing the bullet, and then look at that face. Look at that. Oh, go back a couple frames. Look at that face. Alex has got the biggest grin on his face as he falls to the ground like, oh, Philip just threw the bullet back at me. And something else I realized is I could have done some more effects over here, make it more realistic, like make it, maybe a little bit of blood splatter, or just, I don't know, something to make it a little more realistic. So, going forward, and we'll go ahead and finish off the film here. Alright, and so that's the film, like that's the short itself. There's like a minute and a half left in this video clip, but that's because of just some credits and stuff that we did. So going back here, this part was a little bit hard to edit audio-wise. One, because I forgot the audio equipment. Number one thing I would do, don't forget the audio equipment. It's important, because even though we had good visuals, audio can make or break a scene if it's not done correctly. So, we're going forward. Now, when Philip taps Jacob on the shoulder and Jacob drops to the ground, there's actually some laughter in the background that if you really listen for it, you can hear it. I did some of what I could to kind of hide that laughter. It worked for what I had as an audio source and everything, but again, having actual audio equipment and having the appropriate amount of time to shoot the short would have been the better option. Another thing I'd like to note right away, as we go back to that scene where it switches to slow motion, so go back, here, on that third bullet when it switches to slow motion, it was actually really easy to do this because we did not use what would be considered a professional or even a consumer camera for this short. We actually filmed this with an iPhone 5S. And what we did is we took the camera and we switched it to slow motion mode because this allowed us to record in 720p, it was 720 I believe, at 120 frames per second. Now, because we were recording at 120 frames per second, that's part of what gives us this awesome quality. Also, we had really good lighting even for being a cloudy day. So what we were able to do is instead of, well, okay, what we did in order to get these shots, because everything was in slow motion after we filmed it, is we just simply sped it up and changed everything from 120 frames per second to 60 frames per second. And then for this one particular scene, we just didn't speed it up, and that's what gave us that slow motion effect. So for someone who may not have a nice camera that allows them to record in high quality as it is, if you have an iPhone or pretty much any other type of phone out there, most smartphones have really decent cameras on them now, and you can do quite a bit with them, such as record in slow motion and then be able to break it down to 60 frames per second and get nice quality that way. So we'll go ahead and just run through the end of this film again. Alright, and so now we're back into the credits. Excuse me. And going through the credits, like this music, it was an open source, or not open, not open source, but I'm drawing a blank on the correct term, but basically we could use it for free as long as we gave the appropriate credit for the music, which we do in the credit roll here. The Defiant title text I really like just because it kind of gives that official, like, oh, this is going to be an action type scene feel to it. Yeah, so then we went and do all the credits. Casey helped with the editing. My brother helped with the editing. Casey was our assistant director on the scene. Some of the visual effects helped. My dad actually helped with. He does that sort of stuff. Got the music from Tube Tape and some sound effects from Blink Farm. And at the time, we weren't all one studio, or we weren't working together as one studio, so I worked with 2 other studios on this project. So yeah, one thing to note here, and when we filmed in the back of an alley behind a building in downtown Pulaski, it's a little town in Wisconsin, and one thing that we kind of thought of was, hey, we're going to be using weapons in our project. We should probably let the police know. So we actually did. We gave the police department, actually I think I sent them an email, just kind of going, hey, we are planning on filming on this day at this time at this location. We will be using weapon props, just so you know, in case we get any calls going, hey, these people have weapons and we don't really know what they're doing. You should check this out. Just so that they're aware, like, hey, those people are filming. It's not a big deal. They should be done by this time, and we kind of give them a time frame for how long we were going. I actually got a phone call back from, I believe it was the police chief. I don't remember exactly. And he just kind of went over all the details with us as far as everything goes. And yeah, we got the A-OK for it, and they were aware of everything, and we didn't have any problems at all. And then another thing is, the property was not public property. It was actually private property owned. One of the guys on our team, knew the owner of the property, and we got in touch with him. It's like, hey, we thought this location would be really good for possibly filming a short film, and we would like the opportunity to do this with your permission. And after I talked to him, I answered a few questions about the project. He's like, yeah, that's fine, go for it. Not a big deal. And so we did. We filmed on the property. So those are 2 tips we have for you guys. One, if you're filming with weapons, even if you're not filming with weapons, actually, and you're on any property where there's going to be people that aren't aware of the project, you're probably best to let the police know that, hey, we're doing this, we're not intruding, we're not, using real weapons or endangering anyone intentionally. This project is approved and everything, just so that they're aware of everything. Because if you communicate with them, 1, it shows a sense of professionalism, and 2, it just helps make their jobs easier. Instead of them having to come down hard on you, finding out all the answers to these questions, they already know what's going on, and they can work with you to help you out. Another thing is you definitely want to get in touch with the property owners if you're filming on non-public property, or your own property, for that matter. because if you're not getting their permission, it is technically trespassing, and that can get you in a lot of trouble really quick. So, we'll just scroll through the rest here. As far as this project goes, few tips for you. One, spend more time in pre-production, because planning out your project will make for a better quality, not only in your visual and audible sense, but also in your story. If I had spent more time planning and following through with the plans that I had, we probably would have been able to do a little bit more. If we hadn't been on a time rush, we would have been able to do more, plan out stuff like the fighting scene better. Just the overall planning sequence would have been better. But because we were on a time rush, because we didn't know what the weather was going to do, we rushed through things, and we definitely could have done better. It's something that we learn from, and we move on. And then another thing is do test shots. Test shots are important. If there's something new you want to try, like, for example, following a 3D bullet from a gun into somebody's hand, do a test shot. It doesn't have to be all fancy. You could go out in your backyard. You can get two people, film the scene. Someone could be using a fake, like, hand-shaped fake handgun or something. Boom, shoots the bullet. Insert a little, like, round ball as if you were shooting from a old Revolutionary War style rifle. A little round metal ball or just a little orb or something in your 3D software. Use that in order to be your bullet, basically, and centralize it so that you can get that exact type of scene that you're looking for. If you're trying something new, I definitely recommend doing some test work on it first. And that's actually something we're going to do before we film our next project. And our next project is a short film, possibly ending up into a web series. And there's a lot of new things we're trying, so we're going to do some test shots that you guys will be seeing coming up in the next couple of weeks. As far as everything else goes, we're going to end you with this little clip, and we will see you on the other side. Thanks for watching this commentary on Defiant, and we hope you guys enjoy. If you have questions, definitely feel free to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and we will get back to you as soon as we can, usually within the same day. Thanks, everyone.